Rolling, rolling, rolling. What month is it? Right. My life is it's just a little hectic right now. I'm gonna say our dearly beloved, but that sounds morose. It was incredible. Okay. What? Oh my god. You know, I only had 2 coffees today, and apparently it's not enough. It is noon. I am still tired. It's just anxious, moving energy took over my brain this morning. What month is it? Right. So it's July, and I'm going to do essentially my first ever reading wrap up, my June reading wrap up. I made a video that was quite intentionally stating my reading goal, my TBR reading goal for June, which I have never done before. Mostly just because although I love lists, I am really can be not good at keeping a plan, especially with reading, because I just kind of do what I want when I want. But it was really nice to have a set goal and to try to push myself to read as much as I can and to have that in the back of my mind. And I honestly am, maybe it was my new record. I am very impressed with myself. I read a total of, my instinct, 7 books. This is a Japanese way of counting with your fingers. So I read 7 books in a little bit, some spare change. And I read 7 books, and my other tracker tells me that I read over 2,000 pages, 2,233 pages. I typically don't count, I don't track pages, but I use the story graph. I'll do another video on that later. And it's one of the features on their website. So I know how many books I read, how many pages I read, what the feelings of the books, how to rate them, and the format, how long the pages were, if they were fiction, nonfiction, the pacing, the moods. That's what I meant by feelings. So yeah, I read 7 books, and it is currently July 4th. My life is hectic right now. I will be uploading videos as I can, when I can, but currently finishing a job that I love, mostly love. And I have to say bye to amazing and earnest high school students that I love and care about so deeply, and then move out of my apartment in a city where it's very hard to get rid of things. And so, all within the next few weeks. So yeah, my life is it's just a little hectic right now. There's a lot of changes happening. So it's not going to be consistent when I am uploading. And if you care about that. So I don't know if I care. I would like to be consistent in recording, uploading too. But anyway, it won't be consistent for the foreseeable future until things quiet down a little bit. But so I need another coffee, apparently. I read 7 books, and I will go through all of them. So the first book that I read it on audiobook, via audiobook. I read Noor by Nnedi Okorafor. I believe I mentioned it in my last video, and it was kind of my first dive into Afrofuturism, or so I thought. It essentially led me to fall in love with the genre, and it was kind of completely on accident, and I want to read more books. I've been doing a lot of research recently. I've flagged noted a couple of her other her other books, and yeah, I'm very excited. So Noor is the story of I almost forgot. Chotomate. Loved it. I want to do a standalone review on it. So Noor is the story of AO. AO stands for artificial organism, artificial organism is the name that this woman adopted for herself because she's never quite felt natural. You know, she doesn't like her given name and everything. And AO is Nigerian. The story is set in Nigeria, and she is artificially, what's the word? Augmented, enhanced. She was born with multiple, you know, problems, and they needed to, you know, artificially enhance her body, and the technology was there to do that. And later she got into a car accident that I think basically should have killed her, if I remember correctly. And so she has artificial limbs, artificial legs, an artificial arm, an artificial implant that lets her do all sorts of other stuff, and basically ends up going on the run after something terrible happens, and she meets up with a traditional Fulani herdsman named DNA. DNA is his initials. So automatically you can already love this book. DNA and AO on the run from authorities. And he's also on the run after another terrible event happened, and it's their story as they're, you know, fleeing through the northern Nigerian desert, and it's their story. And there's tech and Afrofuturism and tradition, and it was incredible. I kind of ended up listening to it on accident. I bought it for $5 on a sale on my audio subscription service called Libro.fm, and I will be devouring the rest of their work. I actually didn't realize that Nnedi Okorafor has been on my radar for a while, and so very soon I will be reading or listening to her other works as well. So that was the first book I read. It also reminded me of Queen and Slim, which is one of my favorite movies ever. I read the second book, I'm gonna say Our Dearly Beloved, but that sounds morose. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, also a new love of mine. I have a lot of love to give for books, okay? This is essentially a ragtag bunch of adventurers flying through space on a ship. It is queer, it is magical, it's not magical, like in the literal sense. It's mostly sci-fi. It is a sci-fi book, but it feels magical, and it's all about relationships and species relationships, and learning about new worlds, and how to communicate across cultures, but across species cultures. And it's lovely, and it's wholehearted, and it's focused. You kind of explore the world through the characters, and it's an adventure story. And as my friend who lent me this book, Andy, third shout out, I don't know, described, it's like ultimate comfort read. It's good soup. And I will be reading the rest of her work as well. Ragtag crew with a mishmash of hilarious species and personalities. You know, it says from Sussex, the friendly reptilian pilot, to Kizzy and Jenks, and who are the hilarious engineers, and Rosemary, who's on the run from her past life, and then the captain, and they like stop off at different planets, and it's chaotic, but they become a new group, an inseparable group. Highly recommend. Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. After reading Noor, I've mentioned it on other videos as well, it spurred me to go through all my books. I'm preparing for a moving internationally. I have a lot of books. It's a bit of a nightmare. And I realized that I bought this at a thrift shop for $2, which isn't crazy because it's like paper, it's hardcover. This Between the World and Me it's nonfiction. It is letters to his son. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a black man living in America, and he talks about being black in America and what that means, and, you know, they're quite literally letters to his son, you know, and what it means to have a Black body in a country that never wanted you and would continually exploit the Black body. It is so beautifully written. It is powerful. I thought about it for days after finishing it. I think about it still. It's definitely a book that I will be rereading and, you know, highlighting and whatnot. Which I never do, really. I read through this very quickly the first time because he sucks you in with his writing. But I will be reading it multiple times just to sit with. I think it is really illustrative. I think it really allows people who don't have that lived bodily experience of being Black in places where, you know, the state does not want you, and is actively, you know, working towards your destruction. I think it really allows people to understand what that means in every sense, whether it's within the, you know, generation, certain interactions, going to school, the lack of education, you know, what types of education that is, whether it's from the street, in institutions, or at, you know, a Black university. He goes to Howard. He describes it as the Mecca. And he's a beautiful writer. I understand now why he is referred to as like a contemporary James Baldwin. And Toni Morrison herself, on the back, it says, you know, I've been wondering who might fill the intellectual void that plagued me after James Baldwin died. Clearly it is Ta-Nehisi Coates. The language of Between the World and Me, like Coates' journey, is visceral, eloquent, and beautifully redemptive. And its examination of the hazards and hopes of Black male life is as profound as it is revelatory. This is required reading. I think Toni Morrison says it all, and I will not say anything else. Required reading, please read it. I completely strayed from my planned TBR list, which was not a surprise to me at all. My friends are the founders of the Tokyo Queer Collective, a queer collective here in Tokyo, and they had their first ever event. They are focused on, you know, fostering queer joy and having a space that is open to everyone and isn't necessarily focused around alcohol, which, as someone who's trying to not drink, is actually quite a relief because queer culture can be very alcohol centered. And they held their first queer book exchange. So I picked up a lot of books there. I brought a lot of books. I exchanged a lot. Wasn't planning on going home with any, but of course I did because it's me and there were books. So I picked up a lot of great books and I blasted through them this month and didn't read a lot of the books that I had planned on reading. So these two I had already had. At the book exchange, I picked up The Deep by Rivers Solomon. I have heard nothing but good stuff about Rivers Solomon, about how they're like a Black queer, you know, trans author. This is the story about Yetu and how the descendants of her people, the Wajinru, I don't know how to say that actually. They're the descendants of pregnant African slave women who were thrown overboard by slave owners as they crossed the ocean. And it's considered an Afro part of, you know, an important addition to the Afrofuturist canon. And it is the story of their people in the deep sea. And Yetu is someone who is the holder of memories, the memory keeper for her people. Every year, they collectively relive them again. But she is the one who always remembers them and who always keeps them. The other people in her community don't. And they're a lot for her to handle. And so she flees to the surface because she can't keep, she's, you know, just falling apart at the seams, keeping all of that pain inside of her. And so it's the story of her discovering the surface and the world and her, you know, love for her people. And also it was inspired by the hit song by Clipping, comprised of Davy Diggs, William Hudson, and Jonathan Snipes. Also highly recommend. It is very beautiful. I think I flew through this in like 2 days. And yeah, it was great. Apparently I'm a sucker for Afrofuturism, because I read this not long after finishing Noir. So what I also picked up from the Queer Book Exchange is Aristotle and Dante Discovers the Secrets of the Universe. This was also recommended to me by a dear friend. I saw it, I picked it up, I knew I had to have it. It was a Stonewall Book Award winner. It is also a Lambda Literary Award winner. It's queer, it's gay, it is focused on teens, like growing up and what that means, and the, you know, the pain of growing up, and how Dante, this like jaded, negative teenager, meets no, that is wrong. Aristotle. Ari has a hard time with words, suffers from self-doubt. He just is negative and lost and wants to be alone and doesn't want to let people in. He doesn't know how to talk to people. And then he meets Dante, and Dante seems like self-assured and bright and loved by everyone, very much what Ari feels like he isn't. And it's about their friendship and how they get to know each other, and, you know, handling life as it comes their way. And a lot of it comes their way. It is beautiful. I highly recommend it. Yeah, I went out and bought the sequel to this, because, yeah, I mean, queer books. It's beautiful. I feel like I'm outing myself, but as what? I don't know. I also blasted through Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. It is part of a Throne of Glass series. This is the sixth book. I don't know how. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Seventh book in an 8-book series. This is, you know, about 640 pages. Say what you want about Sarah J. Maas, but she is a writer whose writing puts me in a chokehold. Okay, I read this in 3 days. I haven't really read another author who can make me read a book like this doorstopper thick book in like 3 days. Okay, so I love this series. It's a comfort read. I like her other work as well. Comfort reads. You can say what you want about her writing. I know that people have a lot to say about her and her work, but I do love the series. So I blew through this. The pocket change that I also read, which I also got at the Queer Book Exchange, is The Queer Conscious by Adam Ely, part of the Pocket Change Collective. This is like, I read this over coffee one morning. It was interesting. A lot of stuff that I've already thought about. I didn't really feel like I got anything new from it, but I did like the point about how he's a community organizer in New York City, and he's also Jewish, and he talks about how the Jewish community will rally when something happens within the Jewish community, no matter where in the world. And he was saying that the queer community should do the same. So I thought that was a good point. Beyond that, everything else, I didn't really feel like I could get much more from it, but it was all right. And finally, the last book that I read. I wouldn't really consider this a book that I read. I don't know if you would, whatever. And of course, well, the last thing that I read, I reread Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi, and it was mostly just because some things happened at my work that were enraging and completely, like, I was enraged with the injustice of it all. I won't go into that here, but it was not good. Coupled by the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade in America. I'm not American, I'm Canadian, but I think a lot of people, you know, felt the echoings of that across the world. We are a close neighbor of America, and as someone who is equally affected by reproductive rights, I'm not a woman, I'm trans, non-binary, but, you know, it's also a problem for trans and non-binary folks. I was enraged and I was pissed and I was just angry, and I needed to listen to that in Bitter again. I needed somewhere to channel my anger. You know, I can't do too much right now over here. And I wanted to listen to that, like, bloodthirsty revolution and fiery revolution that occurs in Bitter. And so I listened to that audiobook again very quickly. I blasted through a lot of stuff this month. I have another standalone review of Bitter. It is excellent. If you need to read, still have a lot of fiery rage after what's been going on recently, I recommend it. It's all about revolution and social change and envisioning a better world that we bloody well deserve. I should stop swearing. And it helps. It helped with the anger and the sense of injustice and wanting something better, because we deserve it. Everyone deserves it. Bitter. It's good at channeling rage. Also, the audiobook. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Audiobook production is incredible, and the audio book definitely helps to embody the rage with the voice acting of the narrator. So that was all for June. I am impressed with myself. I think that is a new record, and I am excited to keep doing this, and not only excited to keep doing it just for setting mild goals for myself, but to see how much it is different between what I say I will do and what I end up doing, because they will always be different. I don't think I'll ever be on track. I am still reading, you know, Sister Outsider and Maya Angelou. I have trouble reading nonfiction in, you know, paperback. I usually listen to it, so I'm not as quick to go and pick it up. I do love both of these so far, so I will keep reading them, of course. Onwards to more Black literature and queer literature. I'll be doing another video about that, about my July goals while my life is absolutely upended and blowing through an emotional blender, but I'll be doing more of that as well. So yeah, June, 7 books. It was great. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for books. Stay for me being a klutzy, I don't know what. Okay, ciao.